completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky, all day long.
Some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. Spain has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy. And the rest of us must act consistently, defending now the same values that we defend when we talk about Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela or Greenland. Because the question is not whether or not we are in favor of the Ayatollahs. No one is. Certainly not the Spanish people, and of course not the Spanish government either. The question, rather, is whether or not we are on the side of international law, and therefore of peace.
Nos estamos precipitando de manera muy peligrosa hacia un mundo cada vez más inestable, más inseguro, más belicoso y por tanto más injusto para el común de los mortales. Ayer yo creo que esos temores se constataron nuevamente, por desgracia. Dos países atacaron a Irán unilateralmente, Estados Unidos e Israel, sin contar con la comunidad internacional. Que se puede estar contra un régimen odioso, como está el conjunto de la sociedad española, como es el régimen iraní, y estar a la vez en contra de una intervención militar injustificada, peligrosa y fuera de la legalidad internacional. Que se debe estar contra una guerra iniciada sin autorización del Congreso de Estados Unidos, del Consejo de Seguridad de Naciones Unidas y, como he dicho antes, que vulnera el derecho internacional. Y que siempre hay espacio para una solución negociada, en lugar de dejarse arrastrar por la devastación de las armas como única salida posible.
Come up with a new operation called Simplify. Fly with Israel and go after Hezbollah, who has American blood on its hands. Not only take the mothership of Iran down, also take the proxy of Hezbollah, settle the score, even the account.
Senator, what is your best assessment of what the timeline looks like now?
I feel that's a good question.
And then also, how are we not going to be drawn into a larger ground operation?
There is no reason right now to use troops, but if we need them, the goal is victory. Listen to this. Donald Trump is seeking victory against the Iranian regime. Who's going to win a war between the Iranian regime and the United States? We are. We're going to win this conflict. We have Arab partners today that we didn't have yesterday. So this is going to end with us winning and the Ayatollah's regime going down. What happens next is up to the Iranian people. So what I would tell the American people, pull for victory. Hope that this works well. Pull for the idea that the Iranian people can live without the Ayatollah, that they can be a new Iran emerges from the ashes of this regime. It would be a good thing for the world. At the end of the day, the region is committed to seeing it through. Iran is trying to break their will. It has backfired. So the timetable has shifted. I think the demise of the regime is far more likely to come quicker today than it was yesterday because we have more partners today.
Are we days, weeks?
I don't know. You need to ask the military people. And, you know, in World War II, they didn't ask how long would it take. They said, we're going to go to Berlin, we're going to go to Tokyo, we're going to protect our life. See, what you got to understand, that the regime in Iran would kill everybody in this room if they could. It's not about Republicans or Democrats, it's about Americans. They're religious fanatics. They want to kill all the Jews. They want to destroy Sunni Islam. They want to come after us. So we need to have the approach to this like we did in World War II. This is a terrible mothership of terrorism regime that's killed Americans since 1979, terrorized the region, and it's on the verge of collapse. And I want to congratulate Donald Trump and his team for putting together the most impressive military plan I have ever seen. What's coming in the coming days from us is going to be a lot bigger than it's been in the last couple of days. The Arabs are in the fight now, so stay tuned. What's coming toward the remnants of the regime is going to be overwhelming. The liberation of Iran is at hand. The gateway to peace is about to open. Things that I've been working on with President Biden can now materialize. The biggest prize in the region would be the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict. That will never happen as long as Iran is around. October the 7th was designed to stop what President Biden and I were trying to do, build on the Abraham Accords. Iran's worst nightmare is the Arabs and the Israelis make peace because they're not a peace-loving people. It's a cult of death. We're going to take up where we left off when this regime collapses. And I think the biggest prize of all from taking the regime down is that those who want to make peace in the region will be able to do it without being threatened by the mothership of terrorism.
Good afternoon. I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of United States Central Command. In this capacity, I lead U.S. military forces in the Middle East. I'm here to provide you an update on Operation Epic Fury, now in our 4th day of execution. First, I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the families and teammates of the extraordinary Americans who've been killed in action. And I'd also like to extend our prayers for a speedy recovery to the wounded. Yesterday, you heard from Secretary Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Today, I'd like to give you an operational update on where we are and provide you with some key facts. By order of the President of the United States and the Secretary of War, our military in the Middle East is undertaking an unprecedented operation to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten Americans, as they've been doing for nearly half a century. Having spent more than 36 years in the military, I could not be prouder of America's sons and daughters in uniform who are answering the call. More than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers from the United States are participating in this operation, and more capability is on the way. These forces bring a massive amount of firepower, representing the largest buildup by the U.S. in the Middle East in a generation. In the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command forces, together with Israel, delivered overwhelming and unprecedented strikes into Iran. Many of you may remember the shock and awe strikes of 2003. The first 24 hours of this operation were nearly double the scale, and we continue with 24/7 strikes into Iran from seabed to space and cyberspace. Now, we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran. And then just last night, a B-52 bomber force struck ballistic missile and command and control posts. We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, and we will not stop. We will continue to conduct dynamic targeting operations. We're hunting Iran's last remaining mobile ballistic missile launchers to eliminate what I would characterize as their lingering launch capability. Now, in retaliation, the Iranian regime has launched over 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones. To be clear, Iran is indiscriminately targeting civilians as they launch these missiles and drones. You've seen it on TV. The evidence is crystal clear and overwhelming. Having said this, we are seeing Iran's ability to hit us and our partners is declining, while our combat power, on the other hand, is building. And my overall operational assessment is that we are ahead of our game plan. Along the way, every single branch of our military is achieving unprecedented success. I'll talk about just a few of them. Our naval forces have deployed multiple waves of cruise missiles, obliterating Iranian command and control and air defense capabilities. From 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, we're squeezing Iran from the sea and have them backed into their own ports. U.S. air forces are doing what they do best, executing a high volume of airstrikes right into Iran. Operationally, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world, the U.S. and Israel, are dominating the skies of the world's largest state sponsor of terror. Our U.S. Army soldiers are defending ourselves and our partners, and in a historic first, the U.S. Army fired long-range precision strike missiles called PRISMs in combat, providing an unrivaled deep strike capability. Also for the first time, U.S. Central Command's drone task force, called Task Force Scorpion Strike, launched countless one-way attack drones, achieving massive effects. I'd like to point out these drones were originally an Iranian design. We took them back to America, made them better, and fired them right back at Iran. I just could not be prouder of our men and women in uniform, leveraging innovation to create dilemmas for the enemy. There is no adversary too determined, no mission too difficult for the great soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen that make up the most powerful military the world has ever seen. Our military objectives are crystal clear, and our people are executing an immensely complex and historic mission with relentless lethality, conviction, and professionalism. And we've just begun. But I have the utmost confidence that we, alongside our partners, will absolutely achieve our military objectives. To all our warriors, Godspeed. Thanks so much.
The war on Iran is jeopardizing the entire Middle East energy industry. Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil exporter, has shut down its Ras Tanura refinery in Saudi Arabia's eastern province following a drone strike from Iran. Qatar, the world's largest exporter of gas, has shut down all of its LNG operations after facilities at Ras Laffan and Masayid were targeted. And a UAE oil platform is reportedly burning in the Gulf after being struck. Iran has made fresh threats against shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as around 20% of the world's oil and gas passing through this narrow waterway. Shipping companies say 10% of the world's containers are now stuck. At least 5 vessels have been attacked in the Gulf by Iran over the past 24 hours.
So this is Iran, and this is the Strait of Hormuz. This is a 33-mile slit of water that nearly 20 million barrels a day travel through here. Now, this is critical because the United Arab Emirates, also Saudi Arabia, also Qatar, also Kuwait, Iraq, all of them rely on this little narrow strait here to get their oil out to the world. Now, if they're not able to get that out, because as of right now, Iran has closed this and has already attacked one oil tanker, nearly sinking it, so there is no more oil going out through here. You're going to have massive economic upheaval. You could see $150 to $200 a day. India, 85% export or import, 60% is coming from the Middle East. They will almost assuredly completely shut down. You'll see gas prices and economies just completely closed down. India is going to suffer. Now, we get a lot of stuff from India, so that means the United States prices are going to go up. But China is definitely going to suffer from this. They get 10 million barrels a day that they cannot replace. That's 40% of their imports. Now, they do have some stuff coming from Russia and Central Asia, but that only makes up about 10% of their daily needs. So now, again, China is going to suffer economically, and they're not just going to sit quietly and allow their economy to collapse because of the United States. Japan gets 90% of its needed oil from the Middle East. It could completely collapse and shut down. We could see an absolute collapse of Saudi Arabia. 80 to 90% go out through the Strait of Hormuz. Only 10% go out through the Red Sea. Therefore, you could see Saudi Arabia come to a screeching halt. No more money for the Saudi kingdom. And that could lead to an overthrow of the Saudi regime because the people only stay quiet because they get so much money from the Saudi government. If that's no longer coming in, the hatred for the Saudi government could uprise the people into full-fledged civil war.
Let's stop the bullshit. Y'all know exactly what they're doing to those girls that they got in that ICE detention center. You know exactly why they have taken girls that are aged 13, 14, 15 years old and isolated them from the rest of the detention center. And y'all know that there's pregnant women in there giving birth to babies in this most unsanitary situation.
New at 4, a former detention officer at the South Louisiana ICE Processing Center in Basile pleaded guilty to having relations with a detainee. 56-year-old David Corvell pleaded guilty to 1 count of abuse of a person in federal custody. Prosecutors say Corvell began a personal relationship with a Nicaraguan detainee and had with the detainee multiple times while she was under his authority. Corvell could face up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000.
ICE is holding all pregnant minors in a single Texas facility. Children as young as 13 are being held there, and here's what makes this even more disturbing. At least half of them are pregnant as a result of rape, and they're being held in a state under a total abortion ban with no exceptions. In the past, pregnant minors were placed in foster care or shelters equipped to handle high-risk pregnancies. That changed when the Trump administration ordered all pregnant children be placed into the San Benito program moving forward, despite internal findings that the facility isn't equipped to care for them. Now, experts are sounding the alarm. The Center for Reproductive Rights released a statement saying it's not a coincidence that the Trump administration is sending young pregnant girls to be detained in a state where abortion is banned. Here are my sources if you want more information.
In Texas, ICE agents are separating underage girls from their families and placing them into restricted detention areas that reportedly cannot be freely accessed by family members, attorneys, any outside observers. And these areas are allegedly called the Blue Butterfly Units. At the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, Texas, one of the largest immigration detention facilities in the United States, housing areas are given very child-friendly names like Yellow Frog, Green Turtle, and Brown Bear. But one unit in particular has been standing out to a lot of people, and that is the Blue Butterfly Unit. And the symbolism behind that name is very deeply disturbing if you are at all familiar with the Epstein case currently playing out in the United States. The Blue Butterfly is not just a decoration. It is the official symbol of Speak Out, Act, Reclaim, SOAR, an organization that was founded by Virginia Giuffre. And Virginia Giuffre was one of the most well-known survivors of convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. She accused Epstein and his powerful associates of sexually abusing and trafficking her when she was a teenager. And for decades, she fought publicly, not just for herself, but for other survivors. And she created SOAR to give victims resources and support and a voice. And she chose the blue butterfly as its symbol because it represents transformation, the process of becoming free, the process of surviving abuse and like reclaiming your own life. And after her death in April of 2025, her family wore blue butterfly pins in her memory. To survivors, the blue butterfly means survival, like it means freedom and escape from abuse. So why is that exact symbol now reportedly being used to label restricted detention housing for underaged girls held in federal custody by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement? And this week, international human rights observers and officials at the United Nations began using extremely strong language to describe U.S. immigration detention conditions, warning about the lack of transparency and the oversight and the treatment of the detainees here. And I think that's important because throughout history, there is a very clear and documented pattern when governments detain populations, especially women and children, and they separate them first. Because separation removes witnesses, it removes protection, it can remove accountability. And history has shown that when vulnerable people are isolated in detention systems, whether it's prisons or camps or government custody, they have faced horrific abuses, including aggravated sexual abuse, forced medical procedures like exploitation, and deaths that families never fully get the answers for. That's not speculation, that is documented history across multiple countries, across multiple decades, which raises, I think, very serious and very urgent questions now. Why are teenage girls being separated from their families inside ICE detention facilities? Why are they reportedly restricted areas that others cannot freely access? Why use a symbol that represents surviving SA to label those areas? And why is there so little transparency about what is happening inside of those areas? What is happening inside of the blue butterfly units?